Welcome back to the Running Coaches Connection podcast presented by MICA, the Michigan Interscholastic Track Coaches Association. We have a full house today with me, Rolando, Dave, and Carl's in the house. Today's guest is Lansing Catholic boys and girls cross country coach, or maybe a director of cross country is a better title for him, is Tim Simpson. Coach, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you making time for us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, how did your weekend go? If you want to kind of talk, we just finished up regional weekend.
Our weekend went well. We ran at Uncle John's in Division II, first year in Division II. We won both of them. Won our boys by like 12 points, and won our girls meet by 6 points over DeWitt. So we had a good streak. We have a good streak for the boys going of like 8 straight years, I think, winning regionals. So we were able to extend that even though going up to 2. So we're pretty happy.
That's awesome. Congrats. A double victory. That's pretty sweet. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that if you don't mind, as you said, like your transition into Division II. But before we get to that, I don't know, can you tell us, like, how did you get, a little bit about yourself? How long have you been at Lansing Catholic, and how did you get into the sport, and what led you to become a coach?
Okay, well, it's a long story. No, I've been at Lansing Catholic. This is my 18th year. Before that, I coached a few years at Hazlitt. I actually went to high school in Vermont, and my dad was the girls cross country coach. So from an early age, I got indoctrinated into cross country, and he had a really good team, actually. In fact, his best runner graduated, I think, a year or 2 before I got on the team, and she ended up in 1992 Olympics, finished 7th in the 10K. So right from the start, I saw some really good runners, and ended up going to Michigan State, ran at Michigan State for 5 years, helped coach for another 3 after that. So basically, I guess since I was before high school thinking about coaching and all what it would take. And so then when I moved into coaching for a few years at Hazlitt, took a few years off, and then got the position at Lansing Catholic in 2000 and have been there ever since, coaching boys and girls track and cross country.
That's awesome. Man, you've been everywhere. Like,
yeah, kind of, I guess.
Coming out from Vermont. I wonder what that's like, running out there.
Well, it's a lot different than here. I tell my kids, first off, we probably had about 6 or 7 meets a year max. Every course was different. Every course was different length. I mean, I graduated high school in 81, so, it was a while ago. But, I mean, I remember we would go to some places and their course would be 4 miles, and our home course was 2.2 miles. So it was a big difference. And, it was kind of fun because I came to Michigan and people would ask me, well, what's your best 5K? And I'm like, I don't know if I ever even ran a 5K. I looked it up, and I guess in the New England Championships was 5K, but everything else was just a course, and you just ran it.
What about your guys' state meet? How far was that?
Our state meet was, I'm going to say it was probably 5K, but I don't know that it was really official. I mean, we didn't even think about it. I can remember my state meets, but I don't even remember us thinking about what our times were or, how far it was, which is kind of funny. But because now everybody, that's all they think about is their times. And, if you run on a fast course, you screw up the kids' season for the whole season because they can never get their time and all of that. But we had none of that. I ran on a cinder track in high school, so came out here and, actually at Lansing Catholic, we didn't even have a track until last year. So like most of my career, I've never even had a real track to run on. So it's a little different than most what a lot of people probably went through.
Definitely a unique experience.
Mhm.
That's cool. So then, I guess will this be a good time to ask if you can talk about the transition for your program to come into D2 then?
Sure. I think we've always, as we've gone along through the years, I once we started to become good, I would always tell people, we're going in the best races. for quite a while of running the elite division at Spartan, and our league was always schools that were generally Division II schools. So, I would tell our kids, we'd measure ourselves against bigger schools, and we did well in Division III. So when we got to 2, you could see it coming. The size of the schools, and you see how it's trending. So for a couple of years, I've known we're going to be in 2. So when we get there, we have to be ready, and not make excuses, and not say, well, we would have won if we were in 3 and stuff like that. We had a school around here that went from 3 to 2 about 8 years ago, and I swear, for 2 years in the Lansing State Journal, they would tell how they did in Division II and then say, if they were still in 3, they would have won. I'm like, yeah, well, they're not, and they were the biggest school in Division III when they were there, so they didn't say, well, they're the biggest school, so of course they were supposed to win. So, we didn't make excuses. We don't even really talk about it much. We just, we're ready to be in 2. We have good teams, so I knew it was a good year to go into. I'm like, if there's ever a good year, it's this year. And, after a year or so, kids aren't even going to know the difference between that we used to be in 3 or we're in 2 now. So, if we have a good year, our first couple of years in Division II, that's where we're supposed to be, and that's just how it will be. So it's worked out well.
That's awesome, and I think you kind of hit that perfectly on the head there. It's like, hey, once you make that transition, we're staying up there. So it's like, don't even worry about it.
Yeah, it's
can't play that. Can't keep playing that what if game.
Right, and and the thing is we have a perfect example, because we won state meet 2 years ago in cross country, and then last year we were defending champs, and we got beat by Saugatuck, who moved up from 4. So, if you want to see what it takes, the team moving up, just look at our results. We went from 1st to 2nd and got beat by a team from D4. So, that's kind of our, well, we can maybe do that in 2.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim, this is Carl. What's one piece of advice you'd have for a coach that's just entering the sport or kind of new to the programs or new to a program?
Yeah, I guess my first advice, I look back at when I started coaching, and it's funny because, I went over that, I went to Michigan State and stuff like that. So I was, had a college career, and then I even, did some stuff at coaching at Michigan State. And it's funny because there's just a lot of kids that became coaches that were on our team. Like Keith Hansen was one of my roommates for a couple of years, and he was on my team. Dave Smith, who coaches at Oklahoma State, I actually helped recruit him to Michigan State. Lived with him for a year. So all these kids that I knew then are coaching now, and if you look at how those guys were back in college and how I was, and I think the new coaches have to realize that they might have an idea of what they're going to do when they become a coach, but until you do it, you don't know how you're going to be. You can go in and think, I'm going to coach this way, and I'm going to be, really strict and, everything my way or the highway and this and that. And if that's not, doesn't turn out to be your personality, you got to kind of go in knowing that you're a work in progress. And I think everybody goes in thinking they're going to maybe set the world on fire, but, you're not always going to have success right away. You got to kind of learn what works for you and sort of build it from there.
Okay. Tim, this is Dave, and I want to verify something real quick. So I know you ran at Michigan State, but what years are you running at Michigan State?
I ran at Michigan State. I graduated in '87, so I guess I started in '82 to '87.
Okay. It's funny. I'm not sure if you knew this, but there is a Tim Simpson that's the 1,500-meter record holder at Michigan State. He went like 3:41 and change. Are you familiar with that guy?
Yeah, I've heard of him a few times.
Okay. Before I ask you any questions about this, I do have to figure out why in '85 you had a 4x-mile team that was pretty hot, and you had a 4x4 team the same year that was pretty hot. But I noticed that the DMR record wasn't from '85. How come you guys can put together a DMR?
Well, that's pretty good research actually to figure that stuff out. But we went to NCAAs in whatever year it was in indoor in the 4x800 because they weren't running a DMR in the indoor nationals those years, and so we made it in the 4x800, and there was really only I was our best guy, and I wasn't an 800 runner. I ran 149, but we made it. But I always knew that actual team, those same 4 guys, we would have crushed the DMR. But we just didn't, it wasn't the NCAA event at the time, so we never got to really run it.
Yeah.
We ran a couple of times outdoors at bigger relays, and there was always some kid that would screw it up. But
gotcha. It seems like all the.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was a much better miler than I was an 800 runner, and we had some guys that would have been great in the 1200 too, because we had a kid that. Well, we had a couple of us that placed pretty high in the indoor meet in the 1,000, so we would have had a really nice DMR, and we had the 400 runners too. So, we could have. Yeah,
it just seemed like you guys might have had all the pieces of the puzzle, but just wondering. But no, that's awesome. So okay, back to business here. So this year, you've been coaching forever. You got the coaching pedigree. Your dad. You've been around the sport for a long time, whether you're coaching or just watching your dad as a coach. What is something that you learned new this year that you could just add and say, wow, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago, 15 years ago? What did you learn this year?
Well, I don't know if it's stuff I would have done 15 years ago. Over the past couple years, I've sort of changed the type of workouts that we do. And I've always been someone that kind of watches the team and see what is best in that year for the team and what kind of workouts they're responding to. So, I don't have I used to be the type, I'm going to write everything down, we're going to keep records, and then after a while I'm like, you know what, I can know it enough now when I see it that I'll know what to do and hope it works. And this year, so I don't know if I would have done it in the past, but probably the biggest thing I've learned, and I guess I knew it, but until you go through it, you don't know, is I have Olivia Tice on our team, and right now I think she's ranked on the Flow Track rankings as the 3rd best cross-country runner in the country. And, to me, it's like coaching her is, I guess the biggest thing I realized is that it's just a responsibility. I got somebody that good, and her sister is maybe going to be that good, and we have another girl that's run 18 flat, I'm responsible for them, and I'm responsible for getting them through their career healthy so that they can get a scholarship and not burning them out and not crushing them. So, I guess the biggest thing was just to really hammer that point home that, you can have these great runners, but you got to be responsible for how they come out in the end and not just put it all out there this year and kill them.
No, that's good. Thanks.
So throughout these years of just coaching at your different locations and then settling in over at East Lansing, how has your coaching, or even has it evolved? Has it changed? Are you still kind of at the core, still doing a lot of the same things you did when you got going, or how have you become the coach you are now from where you started, however many years ago?
I think it's just it's always been based on. I guess it sounds crazy, and you wonder why everybody doesn't have that success. It's like, go out and work hard. Well, yeah, your guys work hard, your girls work hard, and that's why they're good. But you see other teams and they're not, and so probably they don't work as hard or as smart. But we keep working on developing our summer program. We hopefully have most of the kids running track, so we're trying to get them year-round or close to year-round and just keeping consistent mileage on them. We're not super high mileage. When I've had some kids that are really good, maybe some boys, we had Keenan Rivera a few years ago, and we got him up to maybe 70 a week for a couple weeks, but that's about it. But we maybe hover around 40, and we try to run at decent pace when we run. And basically in cross country, I don't think I ever let them get flat out. We do a lot of build-ups, tempo runs, stuff like that. So we're not out there doing, repeat 800s and repeat 1000s, stuff like that. And I know a lot of other people do, and they know how to do it well. And we did it and had pretty good success, but I would see other kids that I'd get them sort of towards the end of the season, and I'm like, all right, they're going hard on Monday, and they're going hard on Wednesday maybe, and then I'm asking them to race on Saturday. So I'm sort of saving their max efforts for the races. And our workouts are long, though. I mean, well, fairly long, I guess. We do our staple is a 5-5-5, which is 5 minutes, just regular pace, 5 minutes tempo, then 5 hard. And so we'll do that like 3 times. So by the time they're done, they've run 45 minutes of time that they got to concentrate. And we just do a lot of stuff like that. So I guess as time goes on, I didn't do stuff like that earlier. I've kind of sort of seen how to get kids in shape and then keep them there without sort of pushing them over the edge.
Have you always felt like you were a lower volume coach even when you started, or has that changed as you just grew?
I guess I would say when I ran my last few years at Michigan State, I ran for Jim Stincy, and he was, after I left, he had kids running 100, 120 miles a week, and he had some success with it. And I was running probably most of my time in college, probably 60 miles a week, 70 when I would get a little higher. My last year, over spring break, I ran 200-mile weeks back to back. It paid off. I had a good season in the 5K, and then I ran those 1500s that I ran well. So I see the benefit of the longer mileage. I just, you gotta build them up to it and get them to the point that it's not going to kill them. And I've had a few kids that I could get up to maybe the 70. I read other stuff where everybody on the team's running 70, 80, whatever miles a week, and I just I guess my philosophy is I'm going to lose more kids that way than I can afford to lose. We're not that big of a school, and I can't lose a kid that's good because I'm having him run 80 miles a week. I'll keep him healthy and run him 40, 50 miles a week at his max, and keep him, because we're only, we're just over 500 kids, and so I don't feel that that's going to pay off for me that well.
No, smart. I agree with you. Something that the pet peeve of mine is when people try to tailor their team to a system versus tailoring the system to the team. So I can definitely appreciate that perspective where you're coming from.
Seen that quite a few times. I mean, and at Michigan State, I saw kids that we recruited, and we're trying to hammer them into, this is what you're going to do. And we had Rick Gledhill had the state record in the 800 for quite a while. He came to Michigan State. I mean, he'd run 148 in high school, and we're trying to, and I say I wasn't writing the workouts, but, we're going, we run this many miles per week, and you're going to be a miler, and this one. I'm like, I look back on it, and I'm like, we battled him, not because he was unwilling, but just, to say we're going to hammer a square peg into a round hole. And, it didn't work for him. I mean, he ran okay, but, he was the best 800 runner in the country his senior year, and, we were trying to make him into a long-distance kid.
Right. Some folks are just stubborn like that.
Well, it's not even just, and I guess even stubborn or just what their mentality is I heard at the Mitka clinic, I don't know, back, it's probably 10 or so years ago now, Brooks Johnson was there, and I had a really good, for our level, for D3, I had a 400 runner. She could run 57, and her sister was a really good cross-country runner for me. So I'm like, well, I'll just make Allison. She should be really good at like the 800 or cross-country. She can run 57. She won the state meet, I think, as a sophomore in the 200, and she just didn't have the mentality of a distance runner. And finally, I think it hit me when I went to the Mitka clinic, and Brooks Johnson, who's coached, everybody under the sun, as far as events go and Olympians and everything at Stanford and everywhere else, he's saying, you know what, it's a different mindset. A sprinter and a distance runner, it's not that they just don't want to do it. He's like, they're just built different and they're wired different. And so, you just kind of got to look at the kids, in my opinion, and see what they're willing to do, and maybe push them a little bit from there. And I'm not afraid to push them out of what they're willing to do, but not so far out that they're going to lose it and not want to do it. You got to figure out what kind of motivates them, and what, are they somebody that always wants to be going fast, or are they somebody that's more of a, they can go out for a long run and they'll put in an hour plus run. I just, as you've gone on, you just start to recognize those people and to sort of see what might work for them kind of quicker than it would take just the first time you ever run across it.
Right.
And Tim, kind of along those lines with the mileage and stuff, and, you mentioned it, you have an important job when you get some of those talented kids that you've had, and, every now and then, we'll get something sprinkled in, and we have the job to we keep them healthy and make sure that they can progress to the next level. And I feel like when you see some of these coaches that are running their high school kids at 70 miles, and you have the experience of not just being a high school coach, you've been a college runner, you've been a college coach, where do you go from? You get these kids that are 70-mile-a-week runners at high school just to get to where, to be a good runner. Do you feel like that hinders maybe their potential at the next level because they've kind of I don't want to say maxed out, but I mean, if you're at 15:30 or 15 flat on a 70-mile week, where do you go from there?
I agree. And it works a little bit both ways. Like when I have kids that I see are going to go on to college, I start to get them prepared maybe a year or so out. Okay, well, when you go to school, and I kind of look to see where they're going to go, and say, you need to be prepared when you get there for what's going to happen, But on the other hand, the same thing, this year with Olivia Tice, I guarantee she's probably run fewer miles than any runner in the top 50 girls in the nation. And I mean, fewer miles this year, fewer miles in her life, fewer miles, whatever. She, we found other ways to train her, and it's not just going out and running miles. And she can, she's good enough right now that, you throw her in the Big Ten meet that was today, and you add another 3 minutes, 3:20 on for that extra K, and she'd be right there. And I guarantee she could run 6K at that level. But you talk to some coaches, and they're like, well, what's going to happen when she gets to college and has to train at that level? And I'm thinking, well, why does she have to train at that level? She'll probably train at a little higher level, but, what made you good is what made you good. Now, why do you have to change it because you're switching to a different level? You got to kind of find what makes them good, and not think you have to change it. I heard Dave Smith, he I don't know, I saw something that he had something on Flow Track or something a couple of years ago. He was talking about one of his kids that had a big breakthrough in the 5K on the track, and then the kid's like, well, now I want to train like a 13-15 guy or whatever he ran. And he's like, well, why would you want to do that? Why do you need to do the workouts that those guys are doing? The workouts you just did got you to 13-15. So, I think the college coaches look at it and they don't want a kid that's burned out. But on the other hand, I do think some of them, I don't know. I worry that some of them are a little stubborn about their own philosophy, and that, well, I'm gonna have to adapt them to my mileage and fit them into my program. So, I've kind of, as we've gone along in recruiting, kind of tried to at least be aware of that. What are they going to face, and let the coaches know. This is what this individual has done to get to this point. So it's not necessarily, just double the mileage and they're going to be great. I might be hurt.
Gotcha. No, thanks.
Hey Tim, real quick here.
Yeah.
You know, you've coached for a while now, and like you've had various stuff like through obviously your time at Michigan State, or you got other friends and former athletes who are now coaching. For us, like we talk to each other all the time. We routinely text each other for if we're in a certain scenario, situation, just to pick each other's brains. We've got some other coaching friends. Some retired, some still coaching that we'd like to pick their friends. Who are your go-to coaches for advice?
I think we have their phone numbers and emails.
That's funny because it's different years I've had different assistant coaches, and a lot of times it's just having an assistant for me just to bounce stuff off, And I've been lucky. I've had some really good assistants. Our assistant that we had, well, she left after last year, I guess, was Rachel McFarland, who ran in Michigan. She ran for Michigan State, and she was coaching for us, and she was coaching at Lansing Community College at the same time, and now she's coaching at North Florida. And I see they won their conference this weekend. And so, she was one that was just kind of, as an assistant, was good. I've had a few before her. The guy I've got right now is just he's a friend of mine. He was a parent on the team, and he's just likes cross country. And so, those are just people I've talked to that have been just good for me to, give them my ideas and tell them what I'm thinking, and they kind of say, well, did you ever think about this? Like, well, if you're going to run that girl, what's somebody else going to say or whatever? But yeah, you guys have it great because you've got a good group of people to talk to, and our league has been okay, and there's some coaches that have been around for quite a while, but there's not a lot of ones that I talk to, on a regular basis, but, here and there, like when I ran into Keith at Spartan, and, we only talked for like 20 minutes, but it was like constant nonstop about like, well, what does your team do, or what does your team do, or, and actually I think we were talking about middle school, but it's all the same, just sort of, so I'm kind of jealous of you guys that you've got this good group to bounce stuff off, but that's why I listen to your podcast, so I can hear what other coaches say.
I mean, let's be real. We just ask Carl questions. That's it.
You guys ask
what makes us legitimate.
You guys questions about attendance. I'm good at attendance.
But see, all you got to do is have another coach tell you that's a stupid idea. That's really all you need now and then is somebody to just tell you that's really dumb. Think of something different.
Whenever I have a question, I always gear my questions towards Carl, but I just include Rolando and Takashi just to make them feel good. And but really, I'm looking for Carl's response.
We all know who the brains of the operation is, man. I'm fine with that. I'm okay. Yeah. I'm secure with myself.
Hey, steal whatever you can, whatever you need to.
Right.
So, Tim, what are some of the changes you would like to see happen in our sport?
Oh, man. I guess you guys were – I was going to – when I saw you when I asked that question, I was thinking about finding out what happened on that uniform rule, and then also, these are little things, but the things like the uniforms and tattoos and just things that are just not helpful to anybody's program that we have to spend a bunch of time on. We're running around on Friday, blacking out logos on tights and pinning up shirts so that you can't see the tag on the back of an Under Armour shirt. Those are just, dumb things that I don't know why we're just running around doing things for no reason. The stuff this spring with the New Balance that we had to, sit there for 2 weeks wondering if the kids were going to get suspended or what was going to happen if they went to New Balance, and the fact that, we can't run in NXN. You see these national rankings, and there's guaranteed there should be Michigan teams in those rankings, but no one even considers Michigan because they don't go to NXN. And I look at my team, and we're small, and, I don't know that we'd be good enough to qualify for something like that. But, right now I've got my girls' team. I've got a girl that's running the 16s, a girl that's running the 17s, a girl in the 18s, a girl in the 19s, and a girl in the 20s. That's our top 5. But if we could go to NXN, like that girl that's run like 2020, what would she have run if she knew 3 years ago what it would take for us to get to a meet like that? Or what would the girl that's run 1930, what would she be running if they knew that they could go to, the Nike National meet if they could get down to, 19 flat, something like that. So it just seems like here in Michigan we're just doing a bunch of things that aren't helping us become better. We're just doing them because somebody always did them in the past, and you didn't go to national meets, or you can't wear a certain uniform because people at national meets might be getting sponsors. But here in Michigan, I'm pretty sure that no one in high school cross country is getting money from Under Armour. So why are we worried about them showing an Under Armour logo twice on their shirt? So just stuff like that, I think, would help us a lot. And then there's a lot of things I think we could do to be creative about meets, and I'm starting to see more of it. We're starting to see some night meets, stuff like even what I was talking about when I ran, that we had different distances. If kids just got used to running different distances, they're not so focused just on that time. And, every race isn't like a referendum on how they're doing, whether they got their PR or not. Just go out and run the race and you did well. Oh, what was the race? It's 2.8. Yeah, it doesn't matter because you ran well. So, I don't know, just a lot of stuff like that I think we're doing that's sort of holding us back.
I like the idea of running different distances. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the kids, when they see their time after time, it does drive them, and they are trying to get their PRs, and they are doing that. But, I've been following pretty closely, like, all the national stuff, and you see these races out in, like, New York and in Cortland Park, and they're talking about the all-time record there, and it's some crazy distance, and no one even cares what the distance is. They just know what the best times are on that course. And, I think kids would get more into racing sometimes than just thinking about that time. And a lot of our kids, it's the same thing. If you're not a front runner, every race is almost the same for you. You're just in the middle of a different pack of kids, and then in the end you look at your time, and that's all they're focusing on. A lot of times, I think. And I see a lot of kids, I put them in a JV race or something where they can be towards the front. Suddenly their time drops by like a minute because they focused on racing and not just, the same thing that they've just done twice a week for 8 weeks.
That's a good call. So one thing I was thinking about, and this is something I've heard, and I really don't have a viewpoint on it, but some people talk about having separate state meets for public and private schools. And, you've been on both ends of it, but obviously lately more time on the private sector. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on those, or the idea of having a state meet or state competition in all sports for private schools and those for public schools?
Well, I think it's, I know like in Wisconsin they do that, and I'm sure other places they do. And in Michigan, there's a lot of private schools, I guess. We host the Michigan Catholic Invitational, and we get about 20 schools, and there's a lot that don't come to it. So I think it would be a pretty good competition amongst the private schools. There's enough of them. For me, I wouldn't want it just because I don't think we're at an advantage. I think the premise behind a public school and a private school, dividing them up is that the private schools have an advantage. And I understand that, we could get anybody that wants to pay tuition to come and run in our school. But realistically, most of those people are not going to pay that money to come to a school. Most of the private schools are faith-based, so they're not going to go to a school that isn't their faith and pay, between $5,000 and $10,000 or more $1,000 to do that. We lose more kids than we gain. I mean, we don't gain anybody, actually. I don't think I've ever had anybody transfer from a public school into our school on our team. We lose them to public schools, though, because we have them in middle school, and then some of them don't go to our high school. And we got 2 girls. We got a girl that's run 1920, I think, that was on the same team as our girls are that are on our team this year. She goes to Hazlitt. And we got another girl that run 216 that went to Williamston that was on our middle school team. So we actually lose more than we gain from being a private school. So, I mean, I just don't think it would be, if that's the premise for having the divide, I don't really know. In our case, I know it's not there. I don't know that some other schools, maybe they get extra kids. But, I think it would be a good meet if you had a private school state meet, but I don't think we would need it. But you guys are in the public school, so maybe you think different. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I guess I said I didn't have a viewpoint, but I kind of do. And I think this is more, when you hear this conversation or this argument, it's more geared towards like football and things like that. Mm-hmm. And, from a cross-country track perspective, I want to run against the best. I want to run against everybody. I want the UP to come down. I want, whatever doors we can open up to get people in. And so, but there is that contingent of, yes, you hear it, private schools, they can give scholarships, they can do X, Y, and Z. I don't know. True, not true. I don't care. But I think it's more from a football standpoint. You hear that the Orchard Lake St. Mary's and the Brother Rice's, the Catholic Centrals. But from a running perspective, it doesn't bother me. I want to run. I mean, against whoever we can to make our kids better, and just so much real competition's about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's this. I now and then I have people that do say, "Oh, you guys recruit," and I don't think they're mainly serious. I think they haven't thought it out. And my response always to them is well, why don't you go ask the best kid on your team what we offer them, and that pretty much ends the conversation.
Well, as a former football coach, I can tell you that argument is directly coming from football. Because there is a lot of recruiting that goes on. I coached football at Pioneer for about 10 years. And every now and again, there'd be some standout kid that's in the middle school program that's all of a sudden lining up for Catholic Central. And their family is willing to pay that tuition and make that move solely for the better football experience. So I get the root of where it comes from. But, I don't know how much it affects our sport as it did something like football. Because you go against Catholic Central and you play them in football and they show up with 75, 80 guys. Mm-hmm. You got your standard.
Want to go and play there.
Yeah.
And I would even say that, I wouldn't even be opposed if people thought it was unfair. I would say then why don't you bump every private school up one division. Because they've got extra kids they're pulling. I mean, they really do, potentially have more people that they're pulling from. But now with school of choice, we get a lot of schools around Lansing area that a lot of kids are moving around, depending on the teams. And, they don't live in East Lansing, but they're going to East Lansing because, they got a good basketball team. Or, a whole bunch of kids went to Sexton when they had a good basketball team. So, it's not much. It's even freer movement than a private school because they don't have to pay tuition. All they got to do is apply for school of choice and go to DeWitt to play football or go to wherever they want to go.
Yeah, it is what it is, I guess.
Just compete against whoever's out there.
So while we're talking about state meet, how do you think we could improve our state meet?
Well, I think I was thinking about this one, and I took a course that we've been running on, just our regular course that we run, like our jamborees on and stuff, and I revised it, and I made it a 2-loop course. And I think if we could I think MIS is as far as I know, the only place that we could get all the divisions in at one time. And I do like that everybody's running on the same course on the same day, and that it's such a big event. When kids go there, they're going to the meet, and it's not like, well, the D4 race is over at this small golf course, and it's not really that big. So unless they find a place better than MIS, I think would be stuck with it. But I do think you could make that a better course. I think if you could make that a 2-loop course, I think, and start maybe further up on the infield, take them out, and not maybe run that whole back loop and maybe run them up the hill and back into the track and run them back down through the middle and then out and then back in and down the center, you'd have a lot better spectator course. I mean, because people could line that whole starting straight away and see them start, see them run through halfway through, and then just move over to the finish and see them finish. I think that would be awesome for the state meet because it's so hard to run. And you just wait till you get older, and you got to run. I think about 18 years ago, I'm cruising from the 2 mile, easily getting down to the finish or the straightaway, and now I'm like, I just don't want to pull a muscle coming down because I got to run another. I got another race that I got to get through there, and it's just hard to see your kids more than a couple times. I'll go out and see them twice in that other loop and just try to get back to the finish just to see them go by. I'm not going to change anything for them, but I'd like to see them at least sometime after the 2 mile.
Yeah.
But I think you could make it a 2-loop course there, and it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I know something that bothers Carl a lot about the state meet is the lack of live scoring.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's another thing I was thinking of. I was watching. Did you guys follow the Big Ten meet today?
Yeah.
I mean, I saw that online. I mean, you're watching them, right? As they finish, they're just popping on there, just right there. The score's changing as you're going. That was great. And I don't know what it. I know we had live scoring at Greater Lansing, and I don't know that it had the individuals like that because I wasn't watching it, but I know that I watched my kids finish. I ran up to the finish line, and they already, as you finish, as you get the teams in, as soon as you got 5 runners in, your score goes up. And I got to the score, and we were the first one with 5 in, and we were up there first. And that was, I think kids were still finishing, and it's already running the scores up on the scoreboard. So we got to get that for the state meet because, all they got to do is put some mats out there.
Yeah.
And get it going.
And they're saying it's going to happen, this year. It's supposed to be that this year. I think the one thing they're missing is that board, that some type of device at the finish line that's showing that. Like, yeah, we can all look at our phones, but where's the board that's showing that too? Mm-hmm. And so, supposedly, they tried it last year. They're supposed to have it this year and working significantly better than they did last year. So fingers crossed.
Well, the board they had at Greater Lansing, wasn't big enough that if you were too far, you wouldn't see it from that far away. So, and I think that basically is a combination of probably 16 or, 20 monitors or whatever they are, all, each one's wired for its portion. So to get something big enough that everybody could see, but there's ways to do it. You see these other screens that they bring in on trucks or whatever.
Right. And then, if you have the capability to put every kid's name on that tall tower, don't tell me you can't put a bunch of just names scrolling through and, numbers adjusting on the side.
Right.
They should be able
to all that is that's just hooked up to something on a computer. That's just a monitor. So if your monitor is the one that's got the teams, it might be a little formatting because that thing's so narrow, but there's a way to do it.
I was really surprised at how much change we were able to kind of influence going for this state meet this coming a week from now just by talking to the right people. We voiced some concerns about live streaming and or not live streaming but live scoring and being able to preview the course, and changes are being made. So I'm optimistic that enough of us are speaking to the right people that some of these things we're talking about are going to happen, some of them this year and some of them very soon. Yeah. And I'm optimistic about this very often.
Yeah, well, at least, and I guess most of the stuff I'm optimistic about when it gets to, it's Cody or somebody else. But, when you're getting to, and this probably doesn't go to the level of, a Jack Roberts or whatever, but, if you followed his blog all the way, ever since New Balance, he's on this kick to show everybody that, back in 1920, this is the way it was done. So, I think that Cody and even Nate, his response to that tattoo thing, which was no big deal, but at least if that's his response, like, all right, well, at least they're listening to what makes sense, not just what was the way we always have done it.
Right. And, I mean, I remember how track and cross-country were back in 1920. It was crazy. It was ridiculous. It was so competitive, and, like, the uniforms you wore and everything. So.
Yeah, you are an old fart. So. Oh, it means you remember that.
Those cinder tracks.
Yeah. And Tim, I've heard people complain about the MIS course for 20 years now, and you are the first person, and it is so refreshing to actually hear someone with an idea outside of, oh, we just got to leave. You have an idea of actually change the course. How simple is that? It's a simple idea, and I think it could really work, and it solves a lot of issues. It solves the biggest issue. It's not a spectator-friendly, it's not a coaching-friendly course. And you make a couple of adjustments, and you have a successful day, and you make a lot of people happy. You make Grandma and Grandpa really happy.
Oh, yeah. It would be awesome. Look at all those tents and stuff that they put up on the starting strip. And if you're running all the runners past there, those runners are, they're running most of the race. They're running at the state meet, and they're running most of that race off in a spot where there's no one watching them. That whole stretch in the first mile, they just go off into nowhere, and then they come back, and they run by some people, and then they go back down onto the track, and the last 1,000 meters or 800 meters, there's no one there. They're just running by themselves way off in the distance. It's cool, the stuff around it, but most of their race, they're running off alone. We put them with a crowd around them for most of the time. Imagine what they're going to run.
Right, that's awesome. No, that's a great idea.
Well, let's get it done.
Hey, so now that, we're past regionals, and for you, have you started looking ahead at what's happening in the state, or you probably had a pretty good thumb on the pulse with having competitive teams? How do you think things will shake out for you next week, and do you see any big surprises?
I don't know if there's big surprise. I think in our division, in Division 2, I think Corona won it last year for boys. They've kind of stumbled as they've gone along this year due to injuries and stuff. They showed up at Portage and they didn't even have a team score. And we ran against them at Greater Lansing, and they still weren't as good. It seems like they got most of their kids back, so they're defending champs. I would say they're going to be up there. So that might be a surprise to people that are looking at the rankings and seeing them ranked like, fourth or whatever. And I think up till this week, you probably would expect that maybe they are fourth because they didn't have their whole team, but now they're kind of putting it together, which was probably their plan all along. So, yeah, as much as a defending champ can be a surprise, maybe they will be. So, at the rest of it, I think Chelsea's got a good squad. My team's pretty good. We won Portage, which is kind of a surprise, I think, to some of the other teams. But we do it with, like, our guys just are in a tight group. We had like a 10-second gap at Portage, and I think ever since then we've had 10 to 15 seconds between our 1 to 5, like all the big meets we run in. So that's kind of our strategy. If we win, we're kind of ranked high, but I wouldn't call us the favorite because we don't have any big guns up in the front. On the girls' side, I think. I guess DeWitt was ranked number 1 throughout the year. They weren't really as good probably as what the rankings were, but they look good on athletic.net, and then everybody looks at athletic.net and says, well, who are the top teams? Because depending on where you ran, that's what you're supposed to be. So then they do the rankings based on that, and I kind of watch the rankings through some of the different divisions, and I'm watching maybe some of the people that are voting are kind of being a little lazy because they're just looking at those times, and if you kind of look where they ran, it's a little different. But, it's my team. We have one girl that didn't run at regionals. Everything goes right. She'll run at state, so that'll help us. so we should be right in the mix. Divine Child was ranked 1 or 2. I saw they got 3rd at their regional, so maybe they're just taking it easy. So I don't know. It could be. It could go according to form, or there could be somebody that we don't know pop up, but probably not.
I like it. It's always a fun time. Just that state meet. It's so crazy because, like you said, it's such a weird venue for these kids that it doesn't matter where you go for the biggest invite, like a Portage or an MSU, like you're not going to be able to mimic these things, So there's always that other whole factor of that state.
Teams that have run there and done it, it is a big factor. I mean, we ran a couple of years ago. We got 2nd, I guess, at Benzie, and the next year, the year we ended up winning it, we came back. We beat Benzie 2 or 3 times, and we beat them pretty good. And I told my boys, I'm like, if you think Benzie is going away, they're not. You just wait. They'll be there at states. They've run there. They've won it 2 years in a row. They know what they're doing, and it's going to be a fight. And sure enough, after we beat them 2 or 3 times, we ended up beating them at state meet by 3 or 4 points, and it came down right to the very end. And it's like we were waiting for them to post the score, and that team knew how to run, and they knew what they were doing. And just like last year, my guys had won. And and Saugatuck had won their division, so we're a couple teams that knew what they were doing. Saugatuck was just really, really good, and they took it to us pretty good. But this year I think, on my team, most of our guys have run there 3 years and never finished worse than 2nd, I think. So I'm pretty sure that when they get out there, they're not going to be intimidated. But you see other kids that, have never run there before, and you get to that venue, and it's kind of intimidating.
Yeah, it's what's funny is I was having this conversation after the meet last year, where one of my boys was talking about, or maybe it was before the meet, and he said, I asked him, what do you remember from your first time experience? And he goes, how quiet it was once we got into the stadium. Because, everyone's lining up right the gate right there, and it's like, everyone's yelling and this. And he goes, and 30, 40 seconds later, it's dead quiet, just hard breathing and his footsteps. That's all you got. That's, for him when he was 15, it rocked his world. That was all it took.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, that stretch from when you get onto the track till you get to the finish, that's got to be a hard stretch to run because you're going flying down that hill after everybody's screaming at you. And you're all fired up, and you're hearing people yell, you do this, do that. And like you said, you go off into nowhere. And it's like you and the other ones. And literally, you got to use binoculars to follow your kid out there. And if they can't keep a focus through that, or they start to quit because they're getting tired and they just see nothing in front of them. I mean, because when you're running on the track down there, you look forward, all you see is pavement. Because there's that banked track. I mean, there's nothing even to sort of even gauge what you're doing. It's different. That's for sure. That's a good point.
Obviously, you got your finger figured out for your eyes on D2 teams. How often do you get a chance to pay attention to other divisions, and do you have any thoughts or recaps on some of the regional meets you saw in either D1, 3, or 4, and any ideas on or opinions on those particular state meets?
Well, I couldn't. I watched D1 and see all those teams and see Pioneer and Plymouth Salem, and that seems like those 2 or 3, 4 teams up there should be quite a battle on both boys and girls. We ran against Rockford a couple times, our girls team. They won. Rockford won Spartan Elite. And, I actually think we would have been right there with them, but we had one girl that didn't run so well, but that's what happens. They're a good team. But, so that's about what I watched Division I is watch those top teams. D3, I paid pretty good attention to it just because we were in it before. And the D3 one, it looks like it's quite a battle between Caro and and Hanover Horton, and even Saugatuck. You know, they were kind of at the beginning of the year like, we're not going to have much, but they will. And so, you know, and they got some kids with experience. You know, Carroll's got a couple of kids up front. I think Hanover, I like their team. Girls, D3, I mean, Hart is just, you know, far and away above everybody else. But then the teams after that is, man, quite a battle to be on the podium with Saugatuck and Benzie, and I bet even St. Francis will be in there. So, and then Pewamo, we're pretty close with them. You know, we're real close. We've had some kids that, you know, have relatives there, and they've got good boys and girls teams. So I'm betting that they're both of their teams are going to be pretty high up in the standings. So, and then I do follow D4 a little bit with Mount Pleasant Sacred Heart, because one of the girls on their team actually ran on our middle school team as well. So we kind of followed them for the last 4 years because we watch how she does. But you know, that's the one where I think everybody gets mad because they kill everybody. And you know, it used to be when they had the M Live board, everybody would be all over them for all the kids that they had. And, but I mean, really, you look at their team now, like 4 of them are sisters. So you know, if we get one family, we get the whole thing. So they got a pretty good program.
Yeah. Don't you miss that M Live forum board?
Hey, that's why I suggested to you guys that you need to put it on the Facebook page so you can get that going. Not quite at that level, but some of the good stuff on there is kind of entertaining.
Yeah, like that Jerry Springer of coaching.
Yeah, you know, but what you want to see sometimes is when there's a super short course or something that's really fast, is everybody just call them out and say, you know, what was with that course? Is it legit? You know, and normally everybody claims it is, but you know, you don't know. There's nowhere we have right now to say, you know, I don't know. I mean, it seems like every year we go to Cougar Falcon, which they used to say was short. Now I don't know if they changed it or what happened. But the week after, everybody goes to Allendale and just totally blows away the times from Cougar Falcon. So I don't know what the course at Allendale's like, but maybe something.
Well, it's the same thing as the you know, the early season Benzie Central meet.
Oh yeah, the Benzie meet. It's like, yeah, how does everybody run? You know, those 3 girls that ran under 17 in August. You know, I find that hard to believe. I mean, I saw them all run at Spartan, and they ran pretty well, but not 16 something.
Well, I find interesting about that meet is that if you know take away the top end girls, you look at the middle of the pack, all those kids hit big time PRs out the gate that they never touch again. And if they do touch those times again, it's now during regionals. So you just kind of wonder. Hey.
Yeah, well, you know, and I guess they, you know, it must be right. I've never been there, and I'm sure the course must be measured right, but somehow it's super fast because you're right. And that's kind of what I'm saying is along the line of, you know, the length of the courses and everything. Everybody's focused on that. If you go to Benzie and you run in August up there, you know, your kid's got a long road before they're going to get another PI in most cases.
Yeah. Seems like a double-edged sword type scenario that you kind of don't want to, that I know I don't want to mess with. I can't speak for
Yeah, I mean, if you're running that fast that early, you know, that's a tough way to go because, you know, they're just trying to measure up the rest of the way. So, I mean, I really look at the courses and I'm like, you know, I don't know. I'm sure they're measured right, but if I look at a course on athletic.net and 3/4 of the people listed are in the dark red, I'm like, there's something going on here.
Right. Especially when it's not a championship meet.
Yeah. Right.
I just did a quick little research here, and this is D1. I looked at the top 50 times D1 in Michigan. One boy in the top 50 has his PR at Benzie Central, and 4 girls. So, and it's just top 50 from D1.
Right, but if you ask that same question 2 weeks ago, then
lots of regional PR, lots of regional PRs.
Yeah, championship time of year is when you start to get back up there. But let's say we're having the same discussion here in mid-September, it'd be completely different.
Well, I did.
No, for sure.
I did. I looked at last year. I pulled the top 600 girls times in the state, and there was more run on Benzie's course than any other on any other course. And that was so top 600 went down to about, I think, high 19s. And they only run like 2 meets there, so I don't know. Ace is probably listening to this, and he's probably mad at me. Because I'm not saying the course is short. It's just fast.
Yeah. Well, they say I've never been myself, but everyone I've talked to says it's just completely flat. It's completely wide open. The turns are real gentle. It's just a couple of loops. It's essentially almost a flat track. So I don't know.
And that's like it is in that Cougar Falcon one over in Grand Rapids. We run there, and it's been fast, and it's got wide turns. It's on grass. The footing is nice. It's just a really nice course to run on. So, you get kids on a course like that, and then get good competition. You got most of what you need to run fast. If you can't run fast on a nice course with good competition, then you're probably not going to run fast.
Yeah, probably not going to work out so well.
Okay, so you're kind of, off topic. No, not off topic, but something we talked about before, we went live tonight was there is an issue in our state regarding a team that had qualified for the state meet and had found themselves disqualified, all 7 runners, because a couple of guys wore illegal uniform tops or illegal undergarments underneath their uniforms. And it's kind of created a little wave across the state in terms of, was this the appropriate ruling to disqualify a team? What separates individuals from a team? And just want to kind of get your guys' feedback on this.
So the scenario we're talking about here is like the team, we're just not naming for the time being, I guess. They had 3 individuals, right? And they had the Under Armour thing going on. They're different colors. One was green, one was blue, one was orange, or something, whatever. So, and also preceding that, you said then the race was held up and ended up being about 15 minutes later than scheduled, and they kept delaying it. So these kids are warming up, or they're doing stride outs, and they're being told to take their warm-ups off. Then they're being told it's going to take a minute, so put your warm-ups back on. I think that happened about 3 times. And it's kind of weird to me that in that process, that an official wouldn't tell a kid, like, hey, you can't be having that on. And then, so if you're going to, so these 3 kids then get DQ'd, and now you have this incomplete team, but you disqualified the whole team, and one of them was in the top 15. So does he not get to compete at the state meet because of that? Like, at what point do you choose, like, the team and the individual disqualification?
Did they get disqualified for the colors, or did they get disqualified for logos, or what was the reason?
It was the colors, I believe, because it was 3 different colors.
And the rule says, and the rule clearly states that if you wear an undergarment, it's got to be a solid color. It's got to be one manufacturer's logo, and if another teammate wears one, it must be the same color. And they had 3 different. And so the issue, what I'm curious about is, one, there's no specific rule or case in the case book for the NFHS that states that this would be a team disqualification. But it also brings up the question, okay, if you even have 2 guys that wear illegal uniforms, only one guy makes it illegal because one guy is allowed to wear undergarment, and if no one else does. But if 2 guys do it, who is the individual that's actually making that infraction? And then if 3 guys do it, once again, which is it 2 guys that are now doing the illegal uniform? There's no really clear-cut ruling on this. And I just put a picture on our Google page here with our questions that shows an official standing with this team or near this team and sees them. You can see it clear as day. I see orange, I see black, I see gray. This is a perfect opportunity to be proactive, to say, hey, guys, this is not good. You need to change this up ASAP, and this official did not. And so...
But is that the officials? I mean, it's his duty to give everybody the warning, but I mean, it's not a rule we didn't know.
No,
You see your kids rolling to the line looking like a tie-dye T-shirt, you might want to holler at them.
I won't argue that. I know a lot of this falls on the coach for having this even happen in the first place, but the official's job is to be proactive. And I don't think you'll find an official or a coach that's going to say, we're out to DQ other people. If that official's proactive and says, oh, guys, come on now, you guys got to change this, it's an easy fix. And how many other teams were probably in the same situation?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's two sides of it to me. Like, on one side, I see it, the rule is dumb, all right? It doesn't impact the race. It's just, it's just old school and one of those battles that we like to arbitrarily fight for whatever reason. And it's a dumb rule, and those kids shouldn't be affected by it. But we all know that it's a rule, and this isn't an invitational in the middle of September, or you know what I mean. This is a championship portion. You need to be on point, and I'm not putting the blame 100% on anybody, but there's got to be a level of accountability to check your team and make sure everybody's good and take care of those little things, because you want the focus to be on the race and not what they have on. So it's a simple solution. Just like, no.
If I were the coach of those boys, I would be furious. First of all, I think the death penalty for having the wrong colored undershirt on is a little bit strong. Like, you made this mistake. It's a rule. You broke it. There should be a consequence, but is the right answer to disqualify a team from the state finals? I think that's a strong reaction. But my real question to the coach would, or if I were that coach, would be along the lines of double jeopardy, because it seems like we're being penalized as a team for violating this rule that applies to a team's uniform, but you've also taken away an individual qualifier's opportunity to qualify. So, like, if you're going to take away the team score, I understand. If you're going to decide that this kid wearing the one kid that's wearing the wrong or the different colored undergear, if he's going to be disqualified but the team's allowed to stand, it seems like you're punishing both ways on a rule.
Was the kid that finished individually the one that violated the rule?
Yes, in the photo he's got the gray on.
Well, it's gray, blue, and black, it looks like, right? Or I'm sorry, gray, blue,
orange,
black, and orange.
Yeah.
Good luck figuring out what school that is. I would just have a hard time on saying, like, who's violating the rule. If it's the team that's violating the rule, then okay, we don't get a team score. You're also saying that none of these individuals competed and no individual has an opportunity to qualify. I just think if they're not going to give them a break because the official standing there in the picture isn't doing a good job of looking around, like, you can't miss this violation, then they got to give them a break on that. And if they're not going to give them a break on that, I don't know. It just seems harsh. I mean, look at the hats they're wearing. I mean, right. That's in the rules, but the shirts are.
Well, I'm saying the rule is dumb. I don't contest that at all.
100%.
But you have to, you got to back your team up. Like, you guys know this about me. I bought my team, instead of spending money on warm-ups, I bought my team a set of uniforms that is strictly for cold weather, where they have a long top and some long bottoms, and just for the simple fact of avoiding this issue. If it's cold, we just wear those. And it's school issue, and we're not in there. And so, I don't know, man. There's just two sides to it, I guess. As a coach, you got to cut, you got to dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure everything's on point for the regional meet and championship meets like that. But again, looking at this picture, dude could have said something, because I know at our regional, I watched Charlie Jenke go down the line and address each team individually.
Absolutely. If I were a coach at that meet, I would not notice that of another team, because that's not my job. My job is to make sure my team is ready. I wouldn't have noticed the violation of the other team. But if I were an official and if my job was to make sure the rules were being followed, I don't know how I would have missed that. Like,
yeah, part of his job description.
It's pretty blatant. It's not like, oh, there's a logo on the front and the back. I didn't check the back of every kid. This is like, wow, what's going on here, fellas?
Another question. Was this a official's call initially, or was this a protest?
This was a protest, if I got the story straight. This was filed by the coach of another team. In fact, it was the team that was fourth.
Before the race or after the race?
After the race.
During the race.
During the race?
I believe so. I don't know. But okay. So let me ask you guys. I want an answer from all of you guys. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want to hear an answer. Okay. You guys have a race, and your 7 varsity kids run. After the fact, you find out that 2 of your kids wore 2 different tops underneath their jersey, and one of them is to be disqualified. Okay, because obviously you cannot have more than one runner wear a different color undergarment, correct? You guys all agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Which kid gets disqualified? Carl.
Apparently, it's the whole team and all of the kids. It doesn't matter as how they're applying the rule in this situation, right? I think everybody's just obliterated.
So you have 2 kids that violate a rule. Takashi, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, like, man, who's the kid that's not wearing the school colors? Let's start with him, man. He's screwing things up.
I'm asking you a question. Ann Arbor,
you got to give them a break.
Don't deflect. Don't deflect. I'm asking you a question. You come to find out that Ann Arbor Skyline boys, one kid wore a navy blue long sleeve, one kid wore a white long sleeve.
Yeah.
One of them is to be disqualified.
One of them, like, not both. One is going to get disqualified.
Well, the rule is when more than one wears it, it's illegal.
Right.
So how does the infraction get applied?
I don't know.
Ro?
Hey, man, I have an ultimate set of uniforms. I don't have that problem. I thought about this problem 4 years ago and dropped some change to get some uniforms to avoid it.
Okay.
Preemptive.
Tim, what's your take on that? You come across the line.
If there's 2, I guess the way it is, both should be disqualified. Now, it's too bad that if we had had a 4th that was also wearing orange, the 2 orange ones would have been good, and the other ones would have been out. But if you got 3 that are all different, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing in the rules that says which one should be disqualified, so I guess they're all out. But, again, and I don't want to sound like I'm saying somebody's doing something right or something wrong, but the other question I would thought you were going to ask was, if you saw that happen, would you point it out?
Man.
Not a chance.
Snitches get stitches.
Yeah.
And secondly, if you saw it happen to your team and no one did anything, would you say anything?
Right.
I'm sure everybody would say no. Of course, it's the official's job to disqualify people that they see. And we had a starter at our meet. I heard her. She was pounding probably one of the worst girls teams in the field because their jersey said too low, and you could see on their T-shirts underneath their jerseys some lettering. She's like, if you guys don't fix that, you're gonna get disqualified. And first off, I'm like, I don't know why you're worried about them. But secondly, she was adamantly looking to help kids out. So, and our other official, because we were worried, this was one of the first times we ran in cold weather, and everybody pulls out their Under Armour and their tights, and you see they got 2 logos, or they got a white stripe on the bottom of their tights that they want to wear. So we're trying to mark them out and do whatever you can do, or tell them they got to take them off. And, our starter said, hey, you know what? If I see you're making an attempt to rectify the situation and to cover them up, then I'm not going to disqualify you. Wearing 3 shirts is not an attempt to not be in violation.
Well, I just think the most important piece that needs to be said, again, is that this rule is stupid. It does not affect the outcome of the race, and it is stupid. If the dude is cold, let him layer up, right?
I agree. I don't.
If you were to meet with some of the old guard and ask, what's the intent of the rule? What are we trying to prevent? And how can we prevent that in a more sensible way, or how can we make the penalty more appropriate?
I agree.
I spoke with a couple of officials, I would say part of the old guard, about this particular case, because I got a phone call saying, what should I do? And I called one of my go-to officials, the guy that I really trust, and he's like, well, this is what I do, but I'm going to contact my go-to. And when I got the phone call back today, the first thing was there's two two things that really struck hard. Is one, really, you'll appreciate this. Why in the world would the coach allow this to happen? I agree 100%. And two, why is this even a rule in place? Because it does not impact how fast, how far, how well a kid performs. In any event, track, cross country, it doesn't matter. What they wear does not impact how they perform. And the other thing is there's nothing in the casebook that says how to handle this, the proper, at all. So it's kind of like, yeah, what do you do?
So maybe they'll be in the statement anyway.
Well, now they've created a new problem with having moved this team out of third and moved a new team in. What do you do?
So you got to run them all?
Just allow 4 teams out. It's like they go from we have these harsh, demanding rules to, oh, you know what, everyone gets to go. I don't understand. Right. Our state association is confusing to me, and I don't.
I think that's pretty crappy that, and I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but if the complaint came from the 4th place team and the DQ resulted in them getting the bump to the state meet, then that's a bit suspect to me. I wasn't there. I don't have a 100% story, so I'm not gonna go too far. But
yeah, I think we have to be careful because we don't know all the circumstances. We know a lot of them, and if that coach that's in 3rd place and that team in 3rd place didn't actually do it, then they didn't actually file the complaint or whatever, then it's a different story. So I think we have to be careful there and assuming that they were the ones.
Yeah, so I said if it is the case and it's messed up, it's a lot of question marks. But again, we have all these question marks as a result of a stupid rule.
I like how Roe keeps it simple for us. Like, do not forget.
Never forget. Stupid.
Never forget.
Yeah, man. It's a dumb rule.
This point.
Right. Because now some senior doesn't get to go to his last state meet because of the color blue.
Color blue.
Right? I don't know, man.
No.
That ended quickly, didn't it? I think once we were reminded it was a dumb rule.
It's a dumb rule, so.
Right. It is.
Yeah. I mean,
but that's a national rule, though, right? I mean, we're not the only ones that are in our state following this rule.
Well, I mean, you've been Clark Kent on the research, man. Why don't you look it up?
I think, what's funny about it, though? Like, if these were those arm sleeves, it would not be an issue.
It would be okay,
like, right.
Bedazzled theater gloves that go from your hand off to your shoulder, it wouldn't be a problem. But because it's a shirt, it's a problem.
Oh, exactly, man. Exactly.
Yeah, you can wear any earrings or necklace you want, but don't put a sticker on your arm.
Mm-hmm. Right. I love how we're just keeping up with the times, man.
Well, how do they handle tattoos and permanent stickers in the 1920s? I mean, I guess that's really what it boils down to.
Well, then you say you were around then. You remember that year, didn't you?
Do you think that guy listens to your podcast, Dave?
Oh, man. Who knows?
I hope so. Nothing would make me happy.
I hope not.
You guys are ridiculous.
Oh.
All right, Coach. Thanks for making time with us. We really appreciate you letting us pick your brain, and we hope to be able to bump into you again, obviously at the state meet, but at the clinic and so forth. And best of luck to your boys and girls next week.
Well, good luck to all you guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks too.
Yep.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Much
All right.
appreciated.
See you guys later.